sweet spirit, beautiful, and yet tenacious and tough and passionate and gifted. And I'm amazed that all of that is embodied in that little tiny package.
I guess if there's any one word that I would use to describe Joelle, it would be grace. I would say she is just a graceful woman.
She's my personal hero because she's gone through so much. I don't know anybody who's got that strong faith.
She just has this personality that is kind of larger than life, and she's so beautiful on the outside and she's so beautiful on the inside. I think people want to be around her because it makes us feel good.
I feel like there's a lot you could say. I would describe her as strong. It's kind of an obvious one. But also she just loves Jesus so much. And it's so evident in the way that she lives her life, I would say. How she raised us kids and how she and my dad have a relationship, and yeah. She's goofy. She's funny. Yeah, we can kind of get in our giggly moods and it's fun.
I have this wood-burning fireplace in my family room, and I never put wood in it, right? I put candles. I put a bunch of candles in there. And every time I go to light the candles, you know, some breeze will come in through the chimney, and a lot of the candles will flicker, and some will go out, and I'll have to light them again. There's always one that is always burning, and it's always burning the brightest. And that is how I think of Joelle.
So my husband and I got married in 1992. I was 26 at the time. We then had 2 children. We had a daughter, Elise, and then a son, Elliot, who were 2.5 years apart. I actually was changing Elliot's diaper. It was Christmas Eve. I had sort of a weird experience happen that I couldn't really explain, but it just felt odd. My sister was with me while I was changing his diaper, and I just said to her, "Oh, the weirdest thing just happened, and I don't know what that was." Well, I found out 3 weeks later I was pregnant with my 3rd child, and these weird things that would happen to me just kept continuing. And I figured initially that it was a hormone-related thing with pregnancy, and blew them off, and the best way to describe it was sort of an aura that would come over me. I could still talk to you while I was having this episode or whatever it was. They just continued, and they continued to happen more and more frequently until they were happening multiple times a day. Finally, my husband just said, "You know, I really think you need to get these checked out." And I went to my regular family doctor, who I happened to go to college with, so I knew him, and I figured he would hand me a card to see a psychiatrist and just to tell me, to say, "You're stressed out, you've got 3 little kids, just, it's not a big deal." But thankfully, he was very astute, and he said, "I think you're having some type of a seizure. Let's order an MRI and have you see a neurosurgeon, and we'll just cancel all that if nothing comes of this and if I'm totally wrong." But he said, "I think you're having some type of a seizure." And sure enough, he was right. And so had the MRI, I got a phone call, maybe the next day, I don't remember, or 2 days later, and they said, "We found something on your brain." And I remember at that moment not being shocked, but being prepared. And it's so weird to say this, but I almost felt as though God had prepared me my whole life for that news. And I even said to my husband before I went into the doctor and just said, "These weird things keep happening and I'm starting to forget stuff. I think I have a brain tumor." And sure enough, I did. And so the news was not all that shocking.
It was cold, and I remember you just saying, after we had a nice dinner, you just said, "You know, I need to tell you guys something." And that's how you share that you had a brain tumor to us. And then you go, "I think I need to leave now." And then you left. Really?
Yes.
And we just sat there and cried, the 3 of us.
Yeah.
In my mind, I had been prepared for this, so I wasn't freaked out. I wasn't overly scared. I can't specifically say how my family felt, I think they were much more freaked out than I was, especially my poor husband, my sister, my parents.
Our kids were 5, 3, and 8 months old the first time she had a surgery. So in a way, it's a good thing. It's all they've known their whole life. I think there's a benefit to them. There's not like they didn't have a norm and then all of a sudden mom's a different way. It's just a way that their life is lived out. And I would tell you that I think just the way that she's handled it, kind of her strength and optimism and toughness has made that a lot easier on most of us at home.
Yeah, she's just a real person to me and my brothers, and doesn't try to be some super mom, because I mean she is in my books. She's seriously superwoman, but yeah, she doesn't try to fake anything or be anything that she's not.
Over the last 15 years, I've had 5 recurrences of my tumor, and my tumor, unfortunately, is a non-curable recurring kind, and so it's something I'm always going to have to deal with, and it's never going to go away.
I got a chance to pray with Joelle before surgery. It was really cool to pray with her and Leif and Joelle's parents. But what was even more awesome was after Joelle went into surgery to remove part of the tumor, Leif and I went to this sweet little chapel, and we knelt together and held hands and cried and talked. We prayed this prayer, and it was just a holy time to just be involved in their lives and in their care.
So this past year has been the most challenging for sure for me in this journey. The seizures that I had when I was first diagnosed were very mild. Like I mentioned, I could talk to you through them. I wasn't even aware it was a seizure. It was nothing physical, not your typical seizure that people think of. But in 2014 of August, I had a grand mal seizure that I had never had before. Freaked me out. When I came to, I was unconscious obviously for the majority of the time, but then that just kicked off a year plus of seizures that were disturbing and very freaky. And I know a lot of people struggle with them, and I feel silly even saying that just because my life has been, I would say, very easy as a brain tumor patient compared to so many other people I know that have had many difficulties. And so I feel lame in even saying that was so scary, but they were very scary to me. And so I lost my driving privileges for 15 months and depended on people to get me everywhere. And
she wasn't gonna be defined by brain cancer, but that she was gonna be someone who would redefine what it means. She wasn't gonna be a victim. She wasn't gonna be on the defensive. She was gonna go on the offensive.
I've been fortunate to have a very good quality of life, and I thank God for that, for blessing me with a great quality of life. And so this last year went through radiation and chemo, and so that was my 5th recurrence. And so my hair is growing back in. It's a little shorter than I would normally wear it, but.
One memory that always sticks in my mind is, and we were all there to surprise Joy in her last day of radiation. And when she was going to come out and ring the bell. And I'll never forget this woman. And she just looked at me and she had tears in her eyes. And I said, and she said to me, she's like, no one should look that beautiful bald.
God has changed my perspective on life in such a huge way, and I live now for the eternal. I truly don't really feel like I live for today.
I remember when we used to fight about dumb things, she would always say, is this an eternal matter? Like, is this gonna matter? And so, I don't know, I feel like that's been the biggest way that it's shaped my life, is just kind of that eternal perspective.
I feel like I live with one foot on this earth and one foot in heaven, and quite honestly, it's kind of a weird place to live, and it's kind of a hard place to live. I would say the diagnosis is not something I would choose for my husband or my kids. That's the one negative about it. I don't view it as a negative. I view this journey as a positive and as a blessing in my life, because God has been so faithful.
But I think just to see how your faith has grown throughout, when you look at how you consider having a brain tumor as being a blessing to you, that in and of itself is just the testament to your faith and how much you've been given to
endure kind of the trials and the tribulations that have come through, just the blessings that have come through a journey that you'd never have expected yourself to be on.